In 1947, India gained independence from Britain after approximately 200 years of colonization. However, the sudden joy and freedom from this momentous event did not last long. It soon transformed into fear, death, and tragedy. The country was split apart, permanently separating friends and families and killing millions of them. In this video, we will delve into the partition of India and the Hindus' migration after the separation. To explain the partition and the overall cause of the tragic migration, we must go back to when India was still under Britain's control. Britain eventually brought an organization method that divided the entire population according to one's religion, which was the starting point of the major religious conflict. For instance, Hindus were considered to be the largest religious group, with the Muslims being the second largest, followed by other minority religious groups such as Christians, Buddhists, and Jains. This ultimately led to the creation of the Indian National Congress and the Muslim League, increasing the gap between both religions. However, during World War II, Britain experienced hardships and became too weak to control the entire subcontinent anymore. Therefore, it reportedly decided to leave and announced that it would grant India independence in 1947. After the announcement, the Muslims were afraid of living in a Hindu-majority country, and Muhammad Ali Jinnah, the leader of the Muslim League, requested that Britain make a separate country for them. On the contrary, Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru from the Indian National Congress voiced their desire to make one united India, where everyone from any religion would live together in peace. Nonetheless, Britain accepted Jinnah's proposal about the creation of Pakistan, and a British man named Cyril Radcliffe was assigned to make the map of India after the partition. However, he had very little knowledge about the country and used outdated maps to divide the landmass into India, East Pakistan, and West Pakistan. Ultimately, when the final map was revealed, many people were located in the wrong region. Furthermore, in Pakistan, Jinnah and the Muslim League forced non-Muslim citizens to convert their religion into Islam and persuaded other Muslim citizens to do the same. Hindus in Pakistan experienced countless acts of violence, such as burning houses, murder, and sexual abuse, which ultimately made Hindus sell their houses and emigrate. This was the push factor and the start of the most tragic migration in the history. When Hindus emigrated, they were separated from their hometown, friends, and families permanently. Many of them took their cattle, clothes, and belongings in packed sacks. Most migrants took arranged trains, while others walked or rode carts. However, crossing the border safely was a big challenge for them. Before departure, religious extremists often arrived at train stations and massacred the passengers. They would sometimes sabotage the train abruptly, murder the migrants, and eventually stop the train from moving. When the Muslims attacked, people ran everywhere, and they were crushed and murdered by the gang. Some people also jumped into the rivers and drowned themselves. The only people who survived this journey were those who hid very well or hid under the corpses of other passengers. The remaining passengers after the massacre stayed in their hiding place, daring not to make any sound. When the trains arrived at the station, they were dripping with blood and were full of corpses. The survivors also got ill and starved as most of them were too afraid to get off the train. As a result, more than 2 million people were dead during the journey. The migrants who were walking and riding carts could not avoid the tragedy as well. Many starved during the journey, and corpses piled up along the roads. People lost their families, friends, hometown, and dignity in the end. These were several deadly challenges that the migrants had to risk. When all migrants ultimately arrived in India, they were helpless without anything remaining in their possession. Fortunately, India was mainly friendly to Hindu immigrants from Pakistan. They created refugee camps for them and reopened shops and schools to support them further. Nonetheless, the Hindus were left homeless and sorrowful in refugee camps, and the camps were mostly in dreadful conditions. They were poor in hygiene, and diseases often swept over the camps, killing about 1 million people. Other migrants also stayed in barracks, gardens, bunkers, or vacated houses. The migration ultimately changed the entire society in India, especially Delhi, which was full of migrants. The Muslims who left Delhi were mostly artisans and laborers. On the other hand, most Hindu migrants were landlords, teachers, shopkeepers, and traders, which contributed to changing the entire atmosphere of the city. The migrants also took new jobs as carpenters and vendors, and many of them were successful. Their immigration to India also changed its entire cultural aspects, such as food, clothing, and art, which had a huge social impact. Nonetheless, the partition and the migration journey had a huge impact on the migrants. Some people experienced severe trauma that bothered them for their entire lives. Some lost contact completely with their separated families and friends, and some were not able to return to their hometowns after the immigration. Ultimately, the partition and the migration kept India and Pakistan in a hostile relationship, resulting in intense religious conflicts and civil wars between both countries. In 1971, East Pakistan gained independence and was renamed as Bangladesh. Although the tragic migration seems over, people still live in the shadow of the partition. Thank you for watching.